And so if I have cabbages that are heading, I'm going to adjust my planting schedule, or not schedule, but my planting arrangement for those cabbages to incorporate other rows of cabbage around them so that I don't waste that time, because I really do want to get some cabbage. And we only get one season to grow cabbages, really. My, how fast the weather can change. So I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. We're going to do a garden tour today, and I'm going to show you what's growing in my garden. And I'm also going to talk about what I may have to remove early in my garden, even if I don't get a harvest from it, so I can progress for my plan for next year. Crazy, last week it was in the 70s during the week, high 60s. You know, the lows didn't get really out of 50, and we had some really good growth happening. And this week we're the total opposite. We're in the high 50s, and then we're getting into like 30s at night, every night. And so we're seeing things slow down a little bit, and not to mention it's gonna rain tomorrow, thank God. We definitely need the rain, but it hasn't been that bad because it's been cooler, so we haven't had to water as much. We've only watered the garden probably about once in the last month, and that was last week when it was in the 70s. So we're looking forward to getting some rain, because that water will stick in the ground for a while because it's so cool. But I'm going to show you the garden, and there's going to be times and things in the garden that I have to make tough decisions on coming up soon, and I know that, and I'll explain that as we go along. But this is what's growing. This bed right here I was talking about last time, and this is the broccoli and cauliflower bed. So we have our purple cauliflower here, and that would be this, and that back there. And you can tell because of the purple veins in the leaves that this is going to be the purple cauliflower. This is a calabrese broccoli. And then in the middle here, we just have, just to kind of keep this patch of soil active, we just have a couple collards. Turnips. We're not really expecting a whole lot out of them, and we're not expecting to get big harvests. We just want to keep that soil active. And then up here we have our scarlet mayonnaise carrots. So they're doing well, they're progressing. Now, we would love to get a harvest now. To be totally honest, we're not really expecting to get a harvest. We don't expect to harvest those probably till about February. So as of right now, at filming this, we are 6 days out from the winter solstice. So that means that the sun is super low. We have the least amount of sunlight possible, and these cloudy days do not help whatsoever. And so that's okay, because it gives us time to kind of work on the rest of the garden and do the other projects that we're doing. I've been kind of slacking. I haven't finished my trellis, but there's no rush. Nothing's growing on it. But this is turnips, watermelon radishes, and then red champion radishes we have growing here. And I've just been coming out and plucking as I need them. Nothing's really going crazy, but if you look here, look at that. We've got a couple turnips. I think these will be our Christmas turnips, so we'll eat these for Christmas dinner. I think it's safe to say they'll be there. And then our radishes here, we sowed these really thick, and they're actually starting to bulb finally, so we'll get a couple out of here. That's another thing where we just wanted to keep this soil active, because the plan for this bed the whole time has been grow it, harvest it, amend it, rest it, plant it. So once we get through here, I'm going to come back, and you'll see in the next bed why. I'm going to come back in 2 weeks, because next week the place that I get my topsoil is closed. But when they open up, we're going to get a truckload, and we're going to top off all of these beds. So within the next 2 weeks, we need to have this bed emptied. And then the good thing about this stuff, in particular in this radish bed, is a lot of it'll come up, but then we'll also be able to store it in the refrigerator for a couple weeks on top of that. So we're going to be picking as much as we can out of here for right now, keeping it all moving and going. And then whatever's left, we'll pick, and then we'll put it into the fridge and let it rest. So this bed right here has been kind of a dud this year, kind of. We replaced the wood on it, and you can see how low the soil is. So we need to 100% top this off. And we've got a couple heads of lettuce in here, and we're going to pull those. We're going to start eating those this week. So we'll start clearing this bed out because this needs to be topped off stat, because we're going to put a row of onions right here. Actually, 3 rows of onions right here. So we want to keep those, get those out of here. And this kohlrabi, we're going to let that grow as long as possible. It is obviously not going to go all the way until the end. Now what we can do is we may end up leaving a couple in there to get a harvest out of them, but it's again just to keep this soil active right here, because this bed we knew needed to be reworked. It was kind of pitiful growing this year, and believe it or not, we noticed that the tomatoes really sucked a lot of the nutrients out of the soil. So when we planted in here, we haven't seen some of that fast growth we normally get. So that's kind of the plan, is just keep that soil active so nothing can kind of set in it. And then we'll just till that in and then cover it with the topsoil and we'll be good to go. And we can get our onions in the ground because we're gonna put those in January 15th. We'll start sowing those. And I'm gonna start with putting the last row in, and then each week I'll put another row in going forward. So as they grow, they don't shade each other out and they can kind of set, because the warmer it gets, the better growth we'll have. So that's kind of the plan for that bed right there. And then that just kind of gets it ready for spring and gets everything really active. So in this bed here, we got a couple of things going on. We've got a couple beets here that didn't really make it. We had some bad, or not bad, we had some old seeds. We've just now started getting our cilantro coming up. So we're gonna leave that in as long as possible. And then that sick collard plant, usually I'd pull it up, but I wanted to leave it and see if I could bring it back. And it is definitely coming back. And so that was kind of that overwatering issue I was talking about in a previous video. We have another collard plant here, and then we have a couple mustard plants. And then we have some Brussels sprouts in the back, a kale back here, and then we've got a couple cabbages right here. And so they are super far off from heading up. And because this one's not as low, we'll probably top off around the plants and leave those in as long as possible, especially the Brussels sprouts. We don't want to pull those up until we can try and get a sprout, because we're really trying to hammer that home until we can get everything planted and stuff really needs to go in. So we won't pull stuff up yet, but we're going to start eating pretty heavy out of it. We've been eating the mustard. We've been cutting it back daily, trying to get it, and just kind of filling around the plants, and then we can build that soil up around it. And then when we get them out of there, we can come in and put another slight layer on top of that and then plant it, because this is going to be lettuce, maybe some more kale, and I believe a row of beets. I'm pretty sure. I don't have my plan memorized, but I do know that this is the later planting bed, so we won't plant this for a little while. And then on the rack here, on the cattle panel, we've just got our snow peas here. So again, this is the best year we've had with them. We haven't harvested anything, but we've had multiple freezes. They're still looking real strong. We don't have flowers yet, but if I had to guess, I would think that a couple warmer days and we may actually start to get flowers. But you can see they're climbing up on both sides. So this is the best fall planting we've had so far as survival rate of the plants go. And they're gonna hopefully, we'll see how far they make it. Depends on how cold our winter gets. I mean, right now it's cold to me. It's humid and it's in the low 50s with no sun, and it'll be in the upper 20s to low 30s tonight. And so far these have showed no signs of issues with the cold. And same with this whole bed right here. And I'm here to tell you, if y'all don't grow mustard, I mean, look at this plant. It does not get phased so far by this. It's vibrant, it's beautiful, and I like them when they're spicy personally. It's got like a wasabi taste to it. So I would definitely highly recommend planting mustard in your fall/winter garden, especially in zone 7 to 8, like I am, 7 or 8. I'm in 8A, but they'll still grow in an area like that. And then this bed behind me, so this is when we planted the garlic in the front row, and then we put a row of kohlrabi in the back. Garlic is coming up nicely. It's, you know, it's going to do its thing for months, but I am glad that we're getting this cool weather because it'll help develop bigger bulbs. This is a soft neck grocery store garlic. So we definitely need some colder weather, and we're gonna have about 2 weeks roughly of it within the 50s to 20s range. So that's good weather for building that garlic up. And then the kohlrabi is starting to do its thing. It's been real slow, but it's starting to look strong. We're getting some new growth. You can see on that plant there, we're starting to get some new leaves on it. And then going all the way back, we have one random chard, which I'm not gonna pull up. And then we've got some kale in the back, so we're not gonna pull that up either. We're just gonna let it grow. And then one random rutabaga right there. That's what I've learned over the years when you plant this stuff is if you plant this time of year, then you have to understand that it's cold, the sun's not as bright, and you're gonna need to let it be very patient and just let this stuff kind of grow slowly. And that's what we're doing. So we knew when we planted that kohlrabi that it was gonna be real slow, and we were just gonna let it grow. And originally what we were gonna do is we were gonna put our potatoes in this bed with the garlic, and then we changed our mind and we're actually going to put potatoes in the bed behind it in the radish bed. So there'll be enough time, because we have until February until we plant our potatoes. So we were kind of rushing, but now we have plenty of time to let it grow out and then worry about this back bed. And once we get it amended and get this bed filled, we're just going to let it rest for about a month, and then we're going to feed it. I'm gonna put raw chicken manure on it and let it age in the garden. And then as soon as those potatoes hit it, they're gonna be good to go. We shouldn't even have to add any nitrogen to the soil at that point. So that'll be really good. Now it's time to come over to the wild garden. We'll see what's going on over here. It's kind of a mixed bag. There's some good and there's some bad. So we have 4 beds over here, and this is a bed that we had a bunch of trees, they fell, and I cleared it out. Tried to go in ground, did really well, then it started to fail. Did another year, kind of added some soil, didn't do good, and then I added raised beds. The raised beds didn't do well because I got some really bad like fill dirt by accident. And so we had really compacted soil, so we're like in the process of working all that out. On our low tunnel bed, now I put this low tunnel up 2 months ago, I believe, and I've only had to use it a couple times, but we're now gonna be using it. And we have a couple collard plants back here, and we've been harvesting a little bit off of them. They're growing just fine. We've got some more scarlet mayonnaise carrots here, and in the back we have, I believe it's Imperator carrots coming up, and they're pretty much, you're gonna see them stay like this for the winter. They're not gonna be overly big. These were sowed like a month apart, roughly, so you can see the difference. We've got a couple turnips here, and then a couple more here. And so this is another spot where we're gonna come in and we're gonna add a row of onions right here. And so we'll probably end up, I don't know if I'm gonna pull up these collards or not. These were not the collards I started by seed. Really wanna get a set of collards that I started by seed in the ground by February so that they can grow, because what'll happen here is we'll get a lot of freezing and thawing, and we'll start getting into come March we might get a couple 80-degree days, and then we might get it freezing at night. And what that'll do is that'll trick the plant, because collards are a biennial plant, and so it'll trick it into thinking it's lived through a whole season. And then what we can do is we'll wait for those to go to seed and save the seed, and that'll be my 3rd season saving seed. And it takes about 6 generations, 6 years of saving seed before that seed starts to adapt to your specific climate in which it was grown. So we really want to get another plant in here that's ours, so we can try and get that seed saved, so we can continue that process of saving the seed year after year to get it used to growing in our climate. So we'll be covering it all back up with the low tunnel soon. And then here we've got our Waltham broccoli in the front, and you can see how much more compact these plants are. Now I did make a little bit of a boo-boo when I planted this. I put the broccoli in the front and the cabbages in the back. And so what's happening is the cabbages are actually getting shaded a little bit. So next time we'll just flop it. But these are they're starting to barely, you can see this one right here is barely starting to grow ahead. We've got a couple more mustards in here, and so we'll just leave those in there as long as we can. And in the back bed here, we've got some more Waltham broccoli. Now, this bed is interesting because this corner here, right, just like that, it actually gets a lot more shade, so we have a harder time growing in it. So this time of year, that's why you see things kind of struggle a little bit in this area. But we have, and I've noticed this yesterday, we actually have a little bit of a head forming on this broccoli. So hopefully the frost doesn't bite it too much. We're not going to cover it or anything, but we'll see. And then again, we have, these are the last of our Copenhagen market cabbage, and it's just starting to head up a little bit. You can feel it trying, so we should get ahead here, I'd say in about a month. And the same over here, same thing is planted from this half of the bed forward. So we're starting to get ahead over here. You can see clearly that that's going to be ahead. And then we're also getting some broccoli production here. This actually is kind of a boo-boo on my part as well. When I planted this, now y'all got to tell me if you do the same thing. Planted this broccoli, and when I put it in the ground, it had 2 seeds in 1 cell. And I said, okay, I'm gonna grow it. And whichever one's stronger, I'm gonna come back and cut it. Well, as time passed, I forgot. And then I came out and I realized that they're growing really close to each other, basically in the same cell. So they're stunning each other. So it's kind of my fault. And I mean, you can see clear as day that that's exactly what's going on there. And these are noticeably smaller plants. So, I mean, whatever. We're not overly worried about it. Again, with this compacted soil we have in here, the biggest thing is just to let it stay active and keep things growing and keep the roots digging into it as much as possible. And year over year, it's going to get better. Back here is bok choy, and when I put them in, it was hot and they just got stunted. And I think this one's actually trying to bolt. So, I mean, it doesn't look anything like the other ones, but we're not gonna replace it or anything. When we come back in, I think we're gonna do another row of cabbage here, and broccoli, cabbage, and broccoli. So we'll be pulling all of this up. So in my garden, typically in winter, we get, I'm trying to balance on the garden beds, we'll get a period of dormancy for our cabbages, and then whatever's in the garden right now, if it's at any sizable head or anything like that, I'd say about February, we'll start to get a nice small head of cabbage. And these Copenhagen cabbages, market cabbages that I've been growing for these past couple of years, they don't get very big. So, you know, you're not gonna get those big giant heads of cabbage, which is okay, but I'd like to grow an impressive cabbage, you know? Something about it. I would love to grow an impressive cabbage. And that's why we're doing that golden acre cabbage this year. Now we do have a couple containers left, and we've got one champion that just won't stop. I don't know what the deal is. In this container, we've got, again, another cabbage planted really late, gets pretty good sun in the spot. And then we just threw some seeds around it for some lettuce so we can cut them. You know, we'll end up thinning them out, eating the baby greens. And then we've got some kohlrabis all around it that we planted. It was just, we had extras and I didn't want to throw them out, so I just stuck them in here. Ultimately, I would rather have the cabbage grow, but this cabbage in the past week is really starting to take off. And we did fertilize it, so that did help. Now, get ready for this. This is our cayenne pepper. It was 30 degrees last night. I know. It still is growing peppers. So I'm gonna be saving seeds off this plant because it's been frozen multiple times. It won't go, it's got enormous amount of weed pressure and it just won't stop. Here's another one where we have the cabbage and then we have the lettuce around it. And if this plant right here wasn't doing so well, I would pull this up so we get all the sun it wanted and we would have more cabbage growing. But I want to see how long this is going to last. I saw that there was an inkling of snow in the forecast, like way off, so who knows. And when I say snow here, it's like a 1/16 of an inch, maybe some ice. And I want to see how long that cayenne pepper is going to last. So I don't know, we'll find out. I'm going to be planting more peas on the back half of the cattle panel coming up in the next month or so. And then we're going to be putting the onions in the ground. And then the next thing to go in the ground is going to be the cabbages. And so if I have cabbages that are heading, I'm going to adjust my planting schedule, or not schedule, but my planting arrangement for those cabbages to incorporate other rows of cabbage around them so that I don't waste that time, because I really do want to get some cabbage. And we only get one season to grow cabbages, really. It's between now and March, and then that's it. So I don't want to miss my opportunity to have cabbages. So we'll be adjusting as needed, and I'm going to have to keep my eye on that. But the next order of business for this garden is going to be topping off these garden beds and getting some quality topsoil in, and then maybe putting a little bit of compost on top of that or in the middle. But other than that, the garden's going well. It's doing good. I'm happy. It's green, and we're eating from it, and we're not having to come out and harvest it often. We're not having to worry, check for pests. I haven't had a lot of pests this year at all, which has been good. So we're just, see, there's a problem. Split. So yeah, it's going to be a little spicy too. Maybe a spicy radish and a spicy mustard will be good. Mix them together, make like a saute them together. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. And I hope you guys are having a good holiday season, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.